Hey, Pat, as you get past the game on Sunday and look into the offseason, move forward, what excites you about this group on offense that maybe you can take a big leap in production next year?
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of young players that have gotten a lot of work. Um, you know, you just I think we've got the youngest offense by 1,000 reps of anybody in the league. So when you get through this period, right, it's a real bonus going into next year. And you know, it's like Jerry Judy's got 101 targets. And where do you get that type of work unless you get it done, right? You can just go through and look. You know, the amount of time that these guys have played is very important. You know, Drew, right? Will have played in 12 games, right? That's very important. And everybody talks about this being year two, but it's really not year two in my mind. It's like the continuation of year one, because he didn't have the whole front half of year two. So, and there's a lot of things that he's done really, really well. And then there's some, mistakes that become glaring when it comes from the quarterback position. All right. But those are all things, everything that he's done and made a mistake on is correctable. I think of, Cush, right? Cush has played the whole year. That's an important thing for a center. So we've got a lot of young guys that are super talented that have bright futures. I think of Drew just throwing a slant route. People underestimate this, but in the off season, when you have a chance to just back it off and a Tuesday in March, we're going to come in and all we're going to practice is slant routes. Okay. Well, you got to practice them left and right. If you throw 6 of them, you got to throw 3 under center, 3 in the gun. You got to practice them against free access, bump and run in cloud, because that's what happens outside, right? And the timing for the quarterback is different. It's a plant throw. It's a bounce throw. And then you have to practice them in conjunction with a flat route where it's a second window throw. So I think of all the things that get done in the offseason that this year's rookies, including Drew, were cheated on. And I'm excited about the work that we're going to be able to put in, hopefully, here in the offseason. It will help the third year be better, So I'm excited about all that because I've seen these guys work in tough, strenuous situations where they really weren't fully aware of what they were getting into yet, and they battled through it.
Next one, Nick.
Yeah, Pat, you mentioned Lloyd Cushenberry a second ago. What's the biggest improvement you've seen from him from Monday night against Tennessee in week 1 until now?
Well, I think he's made great improvement. I think just directing things, making sure we're going in the right direction on protections when it requires us to flip it. He's done a good job working in conjunction with his double teams. As a center, you usually, unless it's just a zero nose, and I played center, you're either getting help or giving help. So you're always working in conjunction with one of the guards, and I think he's done a better job of that, whether they're scoops or double teams. Some of the intricacies of running screens, being able to release and go flat, and I think as time has gone on, he's done that better because he is athletic and he does do a nice job out on the perimeter. So I think in all areas he's improved. I think back to early in the year, we started out by playing 3 playoff teams this year, right? Tennessee, Pittsburgh, and then Tampa Bay, right? I mean, we're giving up 30 sacks. We gave up 13 in 2 games, right? And here's a guy that's fresh out of college playing and involved in all that. Right. Since that time, things have settled down some, and so, if you're talented and you work hard and you're tough, the reps help. And I think as the season's gone on, he's battled through that.
With Jerry Jeudy, what do you as coaches do to kind of help him put a game like last Sunday behind him and just kind of bigger picture? A lot of young receivers have made leaps from year one to year two, and a lot of them have reduced their drops over the years from year one to year two. How do you expect that off season of work is going to help Judy and Hamler kind of move past some of the drop issues they've had?
Well, I think, I think you just got to work on it. And whether you caught every ball or dropped every ball, we as coaches correct it and you move on, because you cannot play the game anxious, right? And you got to keep playing. Let's go back to the last week's game. He obviously dropped some balls, but at the very end, he had a chance to make it all right by catching the last one, right? It could have been a walk-off touchdown or put us in position to make. So they got to just keep battling through it, and the work that's required to do it, needs to be done. They're willing and able. They're very talented players, and I look forward to them getting back to it. I think, anything that you're willing to work at, you can get better at. If you have talent, and these guys have talent, and so he just needs to understand that. There's a lot to learn at this level. He had 15 targets the other night, right? Some rookies would be happy to have that in a full season. So there's a lot to be learned by all these reps that he's getting, and he's a terrific young man. He's going to work extremely hard, and I think some of those things that happened along the way, he's done some really good things this year, right? And as they get older and they work harder at it, they become more consistent. And our job as a coach, getting back to what you're talking about, is to have the hard conversations with them, but be positive with them and encourage them to do the work and then have the success and then build the confidence. And that's certainly where it's at. It's sometimes the public wants to consume the fact that we're throwing chairs and hollering and screaming and doing all that. Well, that may be the case, but it's something that happens behind the scenes. And I really do feel like you just have to be encouraging and try to help them improve.
Next one, Mike.
Yeah, Coach, just on Drew, there's one or two plays a game where it just seems like he's careless. And I know you guys work on him. He's got that personality, though, where he throws some caution to the wind. Do you think he can get to that point? And what will it take to get to that point where he can, straddle that line to where he doesn't take too much away from his ability, but yet he's got to be more careful with certain throws?
Yeah, I think it comes down to lack of anxiety. If you're an anxious person, you make more mistakes than if you're trained and you go out and you have confidence and you roll. I think you're right, and there's probably different ways to describe it, but in the one that I'm thinking of in the first drive, he was trying to make a play, right? And he just needs to understand late in the down. We talk about decision-making early and late in the down. In that situation there, hindsight's 20/20. Run it, see if you can get the first. If you don't, we kick a field goal, right? He's outside the pocket. He could have done something with his legs. But there are times when he scrambled outside the pocket and made that play, right? So it's just a fine line. And I think the important thing is they play with confidence. They play with moxie, but then, and then not be anxious, because then you can't do the easy things, right? And so that's the fine line, and I think that's what experience brings to the table. I'm already looking through all these scheme evaluation type things later in the evenings, and I look at sacks. He's been sacked a couple of times. Like he got sacked a couple of times the other night when he was running outside of the pocket, right, for a yard or a minus yard. But he's done a really good job of avoiding the deep sack, where he's pushing up in the pocket and it's -1 or -2. And he really hasn't been sacked all that much. The 13 sacks I talked about in 2 games, he was only involved in 1 of those. And so there's some things behind the scenes that I'm very excited about from Drew's perspective in all areas. And I think, those are the things we'll be able to talk about in detail here in the offseason.
That's time for a few more. Next one, Jeff.
Yeah, Pat, following that, and I don't think we're going to get a chance to speak to you after Sunday. So my intent here is, what will you tell Drew specifically he has to do when he leaves after, for that early part of the off season? What will be some specific, those tough conversations? What will be some specific things you say, this has to be better by the time you get back?
Well, typically, and I'm not trying to evade the question here, but typically the things that I speak to players about, I try not to make public, but I think the important thing for all players, especially guys that have been through seasons like this, first, in my mind, this is kind of a first-year season for him, is to go back and, take a breath, and then we'll go back and dig in and reassess everything, and try to put ourselves back in the mental part of each situation and say, okay, let's talk about this. And I think that's it. Just kind of go back and reflect on everything that happened, and then we'll sit down and give him a detailed plan for how we want to proceed. And again, I don't know what the off season is going to look like yet. I'm hopeful that we're going to get past all this COVID stuff so we can work together here in the off season physically. I'd love to be able to shut these Zooms off. I'm finally learning how to hit the unmute button, and it's been since March. But just go back and reassess. Think about it, reflect. These are things I could have done better. These are things I did well. And then I have a list of things, to your point, that we'll discuss, and I'll just keep that private at this point.
The final one, Kyle.
Hey, Pat, with KJ Hamler, obviously he's had some injury stuff this year with the hamstring, now the concussion. You have the game-winning touchdown. You have a 2-touchdown performance. What's kind of been your impressions of him this year, as his rookie season? How does he trampoline himself into the next season?
Yeah, I think the thing that sticks out about KJ to me, he's tough and he's competitive, and he fights and he battles, and he's super talented, and he has made a lot of plays for us, and he's also had a couple plays that didn't go right. So that's typical of everybody that's played this year. But the one thing I know about him is that tough, competitive nature is going to drive him to do everything that he needs to do. And, we'll sit down. I'll sit down with him. Zach will sit down with him. Here are the things that you need to do in the off season moving forward. And it's easier to have those conversations with the guy that, you already have on your team. That's obviously the challenge when you bring in a rookie. And these rookies we didn't even see. It was like coaching an all-star game. We didn't see them until training camp for the most part. And so I think you'll see a big jump from all rookies this year, including ours.
How's it going, guys?
Hey, Coach, thanks for talking with us. Happy New Year. Bradley Chubb was named the Ed Block Courage Award winner today. What have you seen from him in this past year when he's come back from the ACL, and just how impressed have you been with his season?
Well, you just look at the whole process, and we were here, at least part of the spring, and to see him work through and get himself back to, into top playing shape. And even at the beginning of the year, it wasn't quite there. And then moving through September, he got there and played at a high level. This is a guy that's leads by demonstration, well-liked by his teammates, and it's nice that his peers will recognize him this way with his performance.
Next one, Ever.
Coach, you've been around a lot of head coaches, and you've been around Vic for a decade. How do you think what have you seen from Vic year 2 to, from year 1 that you can tell he's more comfortable and growth and all of that with?
One thing I know about him, he's always learning and growing, and he's always, evaluating himself, listening to others, looking for ways to improve. So, that's an ongoing thing. And, I just think he keeps getting better and better.
Next one, Ryan.
Hey, Ed, it's kind of a follow-up on that. As Vic moves into that third year of this defensive system, in your experience in San Francisco and Chicago, Is that third offseason about adding stuff or streamlining stuff to the talent you have?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's different every time. Like we got hit right now with a big injury bug. So we first got to get our guys back. And we grew knowledge-wise, but we had a lot of different guys in there. Now that'll prove to show depth for us. The guys we're playing with right now at various positions, D-line and DB, that will add good depth to us when we get our other players back next year. So every year, every third year is different. You can see in San Francisco, we kind of got going a little sooner, had a little deeper roster. In Chicago, that's when we spiked, in that third year. So.
Thanks.
Next one, Andrew, as a reminder, guys, if you no longer have a question, please lower your hand. If you have a question, please raise it. Go ahead.
Hey, Ed, looking back at kind of the general arc of Michael Ojemudia this year, what were the biggest specific differences between him early in the season and then when he got put into the lineup again, starting with that game in the Saints? And what do you think his outlook is in 2021 if you have that full off season he can put in that work?
The highest thing is the learning curve in the league. There's just new things coming at you every week. You're out on an island. And I told you before, I think the break helped him. But this is a guy very aware and very sharp, and he can take in large amounts of information. And there are people that can do that, but then to do it in rapid cognition when it's coming at you in a game, that's the next step. And he's starting to show that. He's starting to show tips, that the tactical clues that he's taking them to the game. So I see a real bright future in Michael.
Yeah, Tom, just Happy New Year to you. And first of all, on that kickoff return to start the game, what kind of broke down that allowed Adderley to break through and get to the left side?
It really is execution. It's on my part. It's a bad call. Where we needed to kick the ball and where it ended up going, it wasn't there. And then I ran a twist inside that we shouldn't have ran. So really, bottom line is, Mace, it's on me. Ran a twist we shouldn't have ran with where the ball ended up being kicked. It's not something that I can put on any of the players. That's 100% on me, execution-wise. I didn't give them a chance to execute what we needed to do and what we thought we'd get, that first kick.
Next one, Brandon.
Coach, that kick notwithstanding, your unit's certainly been better, I think, in the last month and a half. It's human nature, though, to think about your future. I think we all do it. Have you spent much time at all thinking about whether or not you'll be back next year with this team?
No, Brandon, I'm focused just on this game. I go game to game, and really, I'll be honest with you, how I look at my career is I go to the next game, go to the next moment, and eventually that moment, if you keep winning moments, you're going to be in that Super Bowl. And that's exactly how I approach every single week. And I don't worry about tomorrows. I just worry about today's. And we got a great team we got to play against, in these Raiders, and they got great special teams. And I'm just focused on trying to win this game. And I just worry about the players. I never worry about myself.
Next one, Eric.
Yeah, Coach, Brandon's been so good from 50 plus, but he's missed a couple extra points, had the 37-yarder that went off the upright there. How do you kind of explain the discrepancy there for him?
I think the biggest thing is don't overcoach it, because then it becomes their identity. They start to focus on the short ones. He needs just to kick the same kick all the time. And you got to move forward. And I thought, if you look at that game, the one thing he did is he missed the 27 or 37-yarder from the 27-yard line, and which is a big disappointment. But you go to the next three kicks, and he goes 50, and then 30, and then 52, and got us right back in that game, in that fourth quarter. So to me, I focus on the guy's strengths, and Brandon's strength is Brandon, and that's why he is good, and he'll recover from those situations. And any mistakes that are made in terms of execution, I put that on myself. There's all kinds of things in the operation that can always help a kicker.
Next one, Kyle.
Well, Tom, with Deontay Spencer, obviously you got the house call this year finally. How would you just evaluate his season overall as kick and punt returner?
I'll be honest with you, Kyle. The number one thing I wish is that we had him every single game. It was so sporadic, with his injury, missing 3 weeks, and then 3 weeks with the COVID. Wish we could have just had him the whole year. From a punt return standpoint, you can see the last 5 games where our productions went, because I think he's just that type of player that can create his own return. But I think as the seasons went along, naturally he's had much better luck. But I think that's because he's been healthy, these last, 3-4 games. And that's where the productions went up.
So still room to go up there.
Oh, no question. I mean, there's always room. I know he's 27 and has played, many years in pro football, whether it's here or up north, but I think there's plenty of room for improvement. I think he would say that, there's always tracking the football, making decisions, kickoff return. It's that one tackle that he's got to break. And if you were to say, Tom, what's the biggest thing that you want to see from Spence this weekend, staying in the present, break a few tackles, don't go down on that first hit. And that's the one thing I think he would say to you too. He can get by that first hit. He's going to get those big plays that I think he deserves. And the guys are blocking their tails off for him. They believe in him, and we just got to break more tackles.
Final one is Zach.
Hey, Coach, thanks for talking with us today. Brandon McManus has a chance to break the single-season record for 50-plus made field goals in a season this week. What's been his success or the key to his success this year from deep?
I think he treats it exactly like it's short. He doesn't focus on the distance. It's the same kick all the time. You don't see a grunt, when it's from 55 versus when it's from 30. And his mindset is it's the same kick every day, every single day. Doesn't look at the yardage and just focuses on the kick, the hold, the operation. And I think he wins in practice, Zach, to be honest with you. We put him in a lot of situations from depth, and he wins out there on the practice field.